Hello. So I just realized I should do a video on this, on unpotting and how to get this ready for dormancy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's see, clean off and pull apart all this moss that is tangled in the roots of this catasetum. And this catasetum is FDK, after dark. Here's the tag, Sunset Valley Orchid. And I'm sorry, this is part 3 of this orchid. I have part 1 and 2 already posted, and I'll try to put a link under the details section of this video. So I've been pulling apart all this moss. So I pot it in moss every year, and it's I don't repot it every year, which I think I should, because for 2 reasons. One, when you pot a catasetum, since it's extremely nutrient hungry, you should mix about a good handful of Osmocote slow release fertilizer throughout your moss. Mix it all up like a salad, and then pot it in a very well draining basket. And this year, unfortunately, I didn't unpot it, or last year I mean, and I didn't unpot it. So this is 2-year-old moss, which is not a good idea. And what I did was I just weaved my finger between and dumped pellets of Osmocotes around. But really, ideally, you should unpot it every year and repot it and put new Osmocote in it. But this year I'm going to try something new. So I have the bloom spike here. That's most of the blooms have gone already, and I'm going to cut the bloom spike off. I have a sterilized snipper, which I have scrubbed and passed through flames. So I'm going to cut some of it off. I'm not going to cut all of it off because I want a little evidence that shows that it has bloomed here already. And so I remember that this bulb is already bloomed. And also I like to remember where, it's usually in the basal, but it's just good to know. This bloom actually can probably still stay in a vase for, I don't know, 2-3 days. So I'll just set that aside and still enjoy it for a little while. But all its old bloom is right here. I had about 12 blooms on it, and now it's gone. It bloomed about for 2 weeks or so. And it's not a very old orchid, so if it's older, it probably can bear the blooms for a longer time. The second thing I'm going to do, besides cleaning all this moss off, I'm also going to cut all these leaves off. And you know what? I'll go ahead and do it now. That way you can see me doing it. Well, but let me just try to remove these first. So this bulb is going really bad. So if you feel, if you can feel this, it's actually, so I'm feeling this right now. It's very soft. And up here it's yellowing, so there's some kind of infection here that is causing this area to rot. And this is, I'm thinking this was the first bulb, and this is the second one in that age order. This is the third for sure. When I got it, it was just these two, and then I grew that one and grew this one. Didn't get any bloom, but once I got brave and gave it a ton more sun, direct sun, I got this to bloom. Let's see. However, I can tell that this has bloomed before, and you can tell because they have left this little note, this area where the bloom has forced out a, the bulb has forced out a bloom spike at this little junction, this node right here, as you can see, and it should have bloomed right here for me, but it didn't work. So that's where it's doing here, and on this side, it probably would have bloomed for me right here had I had given it enough light and fertilizer. And this, it's possible also to get blooms in internodes. Like you can get a bloom in this area in this area, and you can get a bloom here as well. I've seen older catasetums with more blooms than 2, in fact. So anyway, I'm going to see, and this 2 bulbs are very loose, so that makes me think possibly it's very eager to come off already. Now this one, I believe it's a possibility I can save this one. So you can use this technique to divide your catasetums. I prefer not to cut where the junction is. I just like to naturally tear it out, because naturally tearing it out, it'll come off at where its breaking point is, versus, you know, when you're cutting it off, you're guessing where it is. But if you pull it with your hand, you can feel where the natural tearing point is. So there it is. I'm not worried that this doesn't have any roots if I want to save this bulb and try to get a new division out of it. Because, you know, when you store it in dormancy, some people actually cut all the roots off. It'll grow new roots anyway. So I'm going to get rid of this one, this rotten one. It's not totally soft, but something is infected for sure. So I'm going to tear this off. This I will toss away. And this, I will clean it with hydrogen peroxide. I'll soak it. I'll put it in a bowl of hydrogen peroxide for like an hour, and then what do you call, air dry it off, and put it on a paper towel, and just put it in front of a fan and air dry it off. And then I'll store it bare root just like that, and maybe on top of some paper towels in a box, and or just on top of some paper towel. And by February, hopefully, if I'm lucky, somewhere in this area, I will get a new growth. Somewhere here is where that new growth should be coming out. And it's possible it could come out of this or this too. So, okay, set that aside. That's good stuff to save. The rest of this is, what I'm going to do is, this is taking too long to hand, you know, pry out every bit of it. The best thing to do is put it right in outside with a hose and just shoot at it, really, you know, with forceful water, and most of it will come out. And you don't have to be meticulous to get every single thing out, every bit of it out. I think the flushing of that water will get most of it out, and if there's anything as far as like pathogens, it will, or what do you call it, any disease on it, it will, or bugs on it, I mean, it will come right out with some force, I think. But also drying it out will prevent further growth of anything that you don't want growing. So I would think that between December and January, so 2 months of absolutely dryness should kill everything on there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut these leaves off, and I'm forcing it into dormancy on purpose, because I wanted the roots and everything to dry out, since I'm having a possible infection from here. So I'm also going to soak all of these roots for an hour in hydrogen peroxide after I do all this. It's better that the plant goes into dormancy healthy than sick. So, all right. So this is sterilized scissors. And I cut just about that much. Now I cut this already about 2 weeks ago when I was when I had this in bloom, when I had this in full bloom. This was this is where the bloom spike was, and the leaf was hitting the what do you call it, the bloom spike a lot. So I just cut it off already, and that's why you see that yellowing. So I'm going to cut the rest of this off. And then, okay, And I think eventually though, all of this will turn into papery sheath like this right here. So I'm not too worried about having to get real close. All of this will just become papery like this. So now I'm gonna end this video and basically just tell you what I'm doing. I'm gonna flush this outside with a garden hose, and I'm going to soak it in hydrogen peroxide along with this right here, the good bulb, possibly, and let it dry out, and I'll store it in on maybe some newspaper and just leave it there until February. Now I could divide this also, but I think I'm going to keep 3. I think I've read somewhere that they recommend, or other growers have recommend leaving 2 bulbs to 3 bulbs on there. You could do 1. I think I've seen 1, 2 also, but I think I'd rather, since you know I want to possibly do get it to bloom more beautifully, like more fluorescence, inflorescence spikes coming out. I'd rather just keep into 3. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, but that's all.